there you go.
Do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda? Other than the date?
And the minutes.
And the minutes, yes. Hearing none, I entertain a motion for the approval of the corrected agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Motion,
I'll second.
properly supported. Any other discussion? Hearing none, call for the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carried. The minutes of our last meeting. Should everybody receive a copy of it? Had a chance to look at it. Additions or corrections other than the date?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as written. With the exception of the date.
Okay. Have a motion?
I'll second.
Second, properly supported. Any other discussion?
The date is correct.
Oh, the date is correct?
And on the minutes themselves, just not on the agenda.
Oh, okay. Okay. Just approving the minutes as written then. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Or opposed, same sign.
It was kind of a cost.
Motion carried.
But I need to let them.
Okay, at this time, I'll open it up to the public for any items they want to discuss on the agenda. Keeping in mind that we are, our business items, we will be discussing the rezoning request, data center regulations, and the home occupation regulations. So with that, I'll open it up. If you do have some comments, I'd ask that you come up to the podium, state your name. Do you want the addresses too? And address, so that we can properly record it. So, thank you. Right over there, anything? Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Jackie Landon, 3783 15 Mile Road, Northwest. It's Sparta. So I'm here to talk about the data center. I want to thank the Planning Commission and Township for passing the moratorium. I also want to thank Kevin and the Planning Commission for taking the time to gather all the information to help the township make the best decision about data centers. While I would love to ban these data centers, I understand that the state passed a law that makes it impossible for cities to do so. First, I think Kevin has provided great information on data centers. I would like to suggest the Planning Commission include Washtenaw County's draft resolution and toolkit in regards to data centers, and include the Alliance for Great Lakes Regional Playbook for managing data center impacts. I don't know, Kevin, if I sent that today, and Barb, I sent it today, but it was pretty last minute. I do have the toolkits, I don't know, I can send that too. The Washtenaw County's toolkit and the Alliance for Great Lakes goes in more detail and gives specific examples of community benefit agreements. For example, they would require environmental impact studies on water, air, and noise, commitments on job hiring, and have water and energy standards. I would suggest these studies are done through a third party hired by the township. There are a few things mentioned in the summary that I want to address. First, data centers are increasing utility rates, and Sparta should require a utility rate study for any proposed data center. Second, closed systems still use a ton of water because the water evaporates and they need to keep using water. Sparta should require a hydrogeological study. Third, we need more information on how these data centers are heat islands. They increase heat from 3 to 16 degrees that impacts about 6 miles surrounding the data center. This comes from a new study that is being peer reviewed right now. Fourth, what chemicals are used to treat the water? Is it PFAS? Does Michigan have laws to regulate for forever chemicals? In regards to the data center regulations review, can we get more ordinance examples? I personally feel like we need more examples for the township to make an informed decision. Can we add CBAs and resolutions with the ordinance, or is that something done for each project? Is 45 dBA the lowest the noise levels can go? Can we ban certain data centers like hyperscale ones? As the Sparta ordinance draft stands, it seems like it needs a lot more to hold these data centers accountable. The last thing I'll add, I will never say yes to a data center, but my hope is that Sparta does everything it can to protect the community and its natural resources. I think most of the benefit goes towards the rich tech bros and leaves us with less. Thank you. And thank you for all the work you guys are doing.
Thank
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. This side of the room, anybody have anything that they want to? Okay, close this portion and move on. To the business items. As stated, master plan review and adoption, and Kevin has provided us a copy with the final copy, or a clean copy, and then also a copy that was marked up with the edits. Kevin, maybe you wanna just highlight the edits that you made?
Yep, so during the public hearing for the master plan, the planning commission discussed getting rid of what used to be the commercial industrial classification, and then including that within the mixed use residential commercial classification. As such, we've made the appropriate updates throughout the master plan, both to the master plan map and portions of the master plan text. Otherwise, there have been no other changes to the master plan since we last saw it. After your review of those changes, the planning commission could determine to adopt the master plan, and then if so, the motion would be to adopt the resolution of adoption.
Okay, and then the process would then go back to the township board?
No, nope, the planning commission will be the final adopting body of the master plan.
Anybody have any comments on those changes?
Look good to me.
Tim, anything?
No.
Oh, look great.
I'm good.
Good.
That's the case, then I'd entertain a motion for approval of the township, Sparta Township Master Plan 2026.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Okay, a motion and support, I think this would call a roll call vote.
Yes, please.
Johnson. Yes. Doyle.
Yes.
Humphreys.
Yes.
Flannery.
Yes.
Driscoll.
Yes.
And Hartman.
Yes. Yeah, I wanna thank Kevin for all his work on that,
Absolutely.
he did a nice job. And something that we'll be using now. Do we still have to update that every 5 years, or we have to review it every 5 years?
Yes, as we review it every 5 years, if in 5 years there's no changes needed, it would just be a simple readoption.
Okay, during that 5-year period, can we make changes to it?
Yes, yep, there is a process to make changes,
Okay,
yes.
so we could amend it as needed, so. Okay, very good. All right, next order, we have a preliminary review for rezoning request for 9440 Sparta Avenue. And I'd ask the applicants or the prospective applicants if they have any comments they want to make, kind of give us a little bit more of an idea. Paul, would you come up to the?
Sure.
Paul Rogers, address is 1934 Rusco, Kansas City. And the piece of property in question is the last parcel left on Yost Parkway. We worked when we initially did it to make sure, because they were commercially zoned, that we got the addresses are actually follow the Sparta Avenue addresses. And it's just a change from the C1 to C2. The people that have proposed purchasing it want to have outdoor displays. So that's why we had to make the zoning change. So I'll let them speak more about the changes they want to make, whoever wants to talk about it. But if you have any questions, I'm certainly willing to take them, but it's the last parcel on this.
So that's just north of the renter?
Yeah, it's right across the street from the rental center.
Okay, so that driveway then would be the same?
Yep, they do not come off of Sparta Avenue, they have to come off from Yost Parkway, but their address is Sparta Avenue.
Okay.
And that was approved, we had the letters of approval from the fire department for that, for the 911 dispatching and things like that, but that's how it's laid out.
Questions? Mr. Clay, would you like to just give us an idea what you're planning there?
Absolutely. This is Connor, my son, Tim Clay, 465 East Division, we own Expert Trailer, and that's where we would like to move. So we need C2 for our dealer's license, Class A, B dealer's license, which we don't sell automobiles. We can, we don't plan to, but it has to be zone C2, and obviously your approval to move our dealer's license there.
And then we're trying to move it 500 feet back too,
Yeah, instead of
instead
the
of 300.
Utilize.
Yeah, it's C1 right now, 300 feet back, you want C2, 500, yep.
Be able to spread units out a little bit instead
So
of,
then you would be relocating from your current,
correct.
okay. Was it your father that started that, Russ?
They built the building, they had a car lot there, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
Yep, yep, yep.
Been last for a while, so. Okay. You got any questions of them? No. So Kevin, you've kind of done the preliminary on it, and this would fit in then with the master plan, the new master plan as far as the zoning?
Yeah, so just enough preliminary review, but just in terms of the master plan, the request would fit within the master plan. That does call for that, you know, the mixed use residential commercial district to be 500 feet wide, with Rent Smart just to the south, and then across the street on Sparta Avenue also being zone C2. I have no concerns, really tonight looking for some preliminary feedback from the planning commission, specifically about that expansion from 300 to 500 feet. The applicants, before they can finalize their application and come back to the planning commission for the required public hearing, because the property will be dual zoned, we can't just use the property's legal description, and they'll have to complete a survey to create the legal description of the C2 portion. So trying to get some of that preliminary feedback so they know how to finalize the request and what survey to prepare.
Any questions of the board?
I will say one more thing, one of the reasons for stepping back, obviously we need a drain field and a well, so it would help us with that too. Tim Driscoll is obviously there, he's familiar with it also, and also with the county's recommendations of where to put a drain field, they fell all the way to the back. So essentially it would be drain field area, so really wouldn't probably be used for much else.
And they kind of frown on you parking stuff on top of it, so.
Yeah, yeah, we don't wanna buy one twice.
Yeah. It's not good for it. Tim, you have anything else to add? Mark,
Oh, sounds good.
John?
No.
Next,
Terry, this was Tim and Russ Clay, is that correct?
Clay, yes.
Well, this is Connor Clay
Connor
and
Clay?
Tim, yeah.
Tim, yeah. Russ was there,
Russ was his dad.
yes. Okay, well, I guess that's what you need, so you know what you gotta gather as far as the requirements. Submit an application and then we'll go for that, from there.
The rezoning has to go through public.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next to the big mama, data centers. And again, Kevin has provided us with a lot of information. And the rest of the information that we have. Appreciate anything we're kind of in an information gathering session right now, or phase. There's new stuff coming out, seems like every day you'll hear about a new one. So, I looked at the Solon Township one, and that seems to be there's a little bit more meat on that than what we had. But we're in the preliminary stages, so that's good. We can start looking at environmental studies and things of that nature. Something that we definitely need to do, so. Anybody have any questions or comments? You had a chance to go through all of that?
I've read so much on data centers, my eyes are crossed.
Yeah.
And
Data lag.
data lake, yeah. So, has the township board heard anything more from the?
We basically voted to do a 1-year moratorium.
Right,
Mhm.
but you haven't heard any feedback from the person that put it forward?
His words were that they were not interested in Sparta. I think they moved to Solon. I don't know if it's the same developer. It was the same developer that was in Lowell. And the reason he liked the Sparta site was because there was no backlash initially, was his comment, but
He didn't talk to
they all
everybody.
said, the overman said, well, no one knew about it,
Yeah,
but obviously they needed more ground than what is the rodeo grounds to make it viable. They needed 250 to 500 acres to make it. He was just gonna build it and then sell it. And in order to have a buyer, he needed more acres than what the rodeo grounds is.
Okay.
Cause I asked him point blank if that was enough land to put his data center on, cause it's already zoned for it. He said no.
So,
I did have, in reading through the Solon Township one, and I don't think ours, we have anything on smaller units. What did they call those?
Yeah, so I think that's the difference is, right now, the sample that the township received from legal counsel is very much, general, one size fits all.
Right.
Fire emergency services, a data center. It references state law to ensure that inland lakes, wetlands, a lot of state law references the environmental impacts of data centers. The Solon draft, where they've started to develop theirs, is much more comprehensive. They identify different types of data centers, different sizes of data centers, with theirs. Where it's a special land use, maybe it's allowed in more than one district. I have not had the opportunity to complete a full comprehensive review of Solon, but it's definitely more detailed and
Yeah, that's what I noted, it had a lot of detail and where we would have a paragraph saying you need to do this, but they would say you need to do this and address these items really relative to that issue. So hopefully we can learn from others and get something, cause it's inevitable, unfortunately, that we're probably gonna end up with one at some point in time.
I think when we talk about data centers, and I wanna be mindful too, is, there's, we talk about different sizes of data centers.
Right.
Those hyperscale facilities, those are things that take up hundreds or thousands of acres. Right now, from the MTA webinar, they're expecting 10 of those in the state of Michigan in total. We'll talk about data centers more broadly. Maybe there's a smaller data center, maybe there's a co-located data center. There's definitely a possibility of something like a co-located data center where somebody has a small set of servers in their office. But those hyperscale facilities, that's what we're seeing throughout the state right now, is there's a lot of obstacles. We're seeing a lot of local communities react to the rapidly evolving conversation. So that's been the struggle too with finding references, is a lot of the communities that have had active applications have all put in moratoriums in place, some of them within the last month or two, so there's not a lot of samples to provide from. Solon's was out there, the Michigan Townships Association is still working on their template ordinance. There's not a lot of Michigan ordinance that are already developed and tested and able to be referenced easily. So, with the moratorium in place, I think that's kind of what we'll see over the next few months is, you know, Solon might be one of the leaders with their data center regulations, and I'll definitely be curious to see what the Michigan Townships Association comes out with also.
I think in this month's township book, there's several pieces of legislation pending regarding data centers. It seems to be a common thing, so
Yeah.
stay tuned.
And it's all still to be seen, especially with state legislation. That is something that's in the back of my mind is, will this go the same direction as utility scale renewable energies did? That is potential with these data centers, both federal government and state government said these are priorities for the state and the country. So there is a possibility that we would see state legislation that at least preempts on some level local zoning. But at this time, Sparta Township still has the ability to regulate these as you see fit. And I'll continue to work with you to create the right regulations for your community.
Okay. Any other comments?
I have one, maybe Rob could clear this up for me. Will this affect, you know, if they put a data center possibly in this area, would that affect the bee pollination of the apple?
I have no clue,
Yeah.
not a good expert. I do I do question if a data center goes in, aren't they required to use green energy to help?
With some of the state, I don't want to call them tax incentives, there is renewable green energy portions tied to those incentives from the state.
Which would lead to more solar farms in adjacent to wherever that would be.
Quite potentially, yes. But you could also see, I mean, with some of these hyperscale facilities with them being so large, you could also see roof mounted solar and those sorts of things also. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, there is,
Yes.
one thing I saw in the ordinance that I didn't quite agree with our draft ordinance. I do think that, Solon is much more comprehensive at this point, but they've also been working hard on it for a lot longer than we have.
Right.
But when it came back to, if it's not there anymore, right, the restoration of the site. And I just want to throw it out there so we can all be thinking about it before we actually get to something we're willing to vote on. But it talked about, in our ordinance, it talked about removal of everything. That, to me, I'm not so sure that makes sense. I would rather see if one was put in Sparta Township, and if they are only gonna have this short lifespan that some of the articles I've been reading say, it seems to me that we would want to repurpose that building. I wouldn't wanna, so a big data center that's on 250 acres, and it's only employing 5 or 7 people, right? I would much rather see something on that if the building could be repurposed to a point, right? All the infrastructure stripped on the inside, I think we need to work on that as far as decommissioning that portion of the ordinance a little bit, cause I don't think we'd wanna see the building just ripped right back to the ground and bulldozed. If there was another company that would come in and use that building and create jobs for our area. So that was the only thing, that portion of the ordinance, I think we need to massage maybe a
Now,
little bit.
is it written that they have to?
The way I read it. Are
I
you
think
in
it's
that
within a
portion?
year or something. Okay.
Yeah.
It does say, okay.
Does it say remove?
No,
Yeah, must remove the system within 6 months after the date of abandonment.
no.
But that's.
Well, that's his system though.
That's
I
the
guess I might have read
system,
it
not the
wrong.
building it though.
But then again, we don't want an abandoned building sitting there either.
No.
So it's almost like a period of time before they would have to remove that. And I think the only way to protect us on that would be with a large bond of some sort. And to answer your question, I've read 4 articles now, 3 of them said yes. Some of the emittents from a data center do have two of them said a great effect on the bee pollination ability and the bee family. One of them said a minimal effect, and one of them that was written by a very pro data center side said it had no effect. So I guess it's whoever's studying it, but if you read 4 of them and 3 say yes,
Yep.
and one says no, I'm gonna go with the odds.
Yeah.
And then, as it was pointed out tonight about the temperature, you know, in the area, so that certainly could affect.
Absolutely.
Bee colonies, yeah. I read that same article.
Well, we'll just continue the gathering of information and digesting of it. And hopefully we can incorporate some of that. So, all right, well, our home occupation regulation review. Again, I'll turn it over to Kevin to lead us into this.
I am just catching up on my notes.
Okay.
Alright, for the home occupations, there are a few different changes. There's 7 that we've identified within our memorandum. Happy to go through it however the planning commission would like, but just looking for your feedback on those proposed changes.
I just soon have you go through it, because to be honest with you, I didn't get to read everything. Got bogged down in the data center stuff, so.
So the first change you'll see is on page 2. There has been language that's been added to allow for a sketch plan, so instead of having to do what I would call a formal site plan, a home-based business would be able to provide a sketch plan. And within that language, it provides the details. It still has to be drawn to scale, it has to include different information, but it does not have to be a full engineered site plan. Are there any concerns with the sketch plan language?
Anybody have any?
I have none. I think that's exactly what we were looking for when we talked about it.
The other addition would be on non-transferability. So typically, a special land use would run with the land, but this would require that the home-based business cannot be transferred between property owners. Well, it can be, but only if the planning commission approves.
Yep, that's something we talked about, so.
The last addition on page 2 would be inspections, so giving the township the ability to periodically inspect the use to ensure compliance with what was approved by the planning commission. Then on page 3, changes to who can be employed. So the previous version said, no other than members of the family. This has been updated to say that shall be conducted primarily by so whoever's living there has to be running the business. But it does give them the ability to have a certain number of employees. One place where I am looking for some feedback is the way this is written right now, in order for a home-based business to have employees, that home-based business would have to be on a lot 5 acres or larger. I don't know if that's the right number. I don't even know if you would want to include the limitation. Would you allow this on a 1 acre? Would you allow somebody on less than 1 acre to have a home-based business with employees? So that's definitely one place where I'm looking for some feedback from the planning commission.
Could we kind of scale it to size of the size of the property to the number of employees?
It's definitely possible. Say if you get 1 acre, you can have 1 employee, and then at 5 acres, you can have 3, and I don't know if you guys would wanna put a cap at some point, but you can.
I think that would probably be good to have something like that. Cause, you know, the concerns are, there's additional parking required, you know, just the traffic in and out type of thing. So, what's your thoughts, Barb? You look like you're deep in thought there.
Well, I mean, it would depend on the depth of the business. I mean, if you've got an acre and you've got 4 people that just come and park their cars there and then you go off to work, I mean, it could be a matter of you've got 2 trucks and they pile into those 2 trucks and they leave. I can't see that would be an issue. You know what I'm saying?
No, I agree.
So,
But I know of a business that's operating in Sparta Township that's on a small lot.
yeah,
They don't create a nuisance and never have. Right?
no,
And it's that type of a business where their employees come in, they get in their trucks and they leave.
right.
So I don't know how we really would
Yeah,
do that. I mean,
just a thought I threw out.
yeah, no, but I think it's business dependent. And I don't know how we even
Exactly,
add
so,
that to it, really.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
could we limit, like if it's under 5 acres, like a maximum number of employees that could be on that business? And then if it's over 5 acres, it automatically would be potentially okay, correct?
you probably do that.
I don't know what the magic number is, but I wondered if there was a number that we would kind of consider to not impede on maybe the neighbors or something like 4 or 6 or. Not that anybody's necessarily gonna police this either and be
No.
able to, but in case we got challenged on it, we would at least have something in place to say, yeah, if you have more than, I'm just gonna say 5 employees, then you have to have at least 5 acres or something like that. I don't know what that number is.
That'd be something doable then, Kevin?
No, we could definitely change that language to put in something in place that says, for a lot under 5 acres, you know, you're limited to so many employees, and then above 5 acres, you're limited to, you know, X amount of employees.
Cause with the more employees, you're gonna have more equipment sitting around, and, you know, it's potentially.
I mean, we've already said the equipment's gotta be stored within the building.
Yep, that'll be another change that we'll talk about with like outdoor storage.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already thinking of one guy that I know, you know, his guys come, they combine getting into trucks and they leave.
Right.
And you don't even know that they're there. So it's kind of hard to, like you say, you can't police, you're not gonna police it. And I know of one that doesn't even have a half of an acre, and he's got all kinds of trucks that sit on his property.
Do we need to have a limit? That's another question. I mean, at some point, if the business is expanding and growing and turned into I don't wanna say viable business, cause a lot of these are viable businesses. Right? But as any other business, as it grows to a certain point in the development of a business, if you get to where you need more employees and more space and more of this, you really then start leaning towards a true business location instead of being a home-based business.
Then it's not a home business anymore.
Right. I mean, I don't think we can have a determination on that within our ordinance, I'm not saying that, but how do you what's a magic number and how do we create a magic number for people in acreage and size and all that?
You wouldn't be able to enforce it anyway.
Mr. Chairman, it actually is pretty easy to find out and look up unemployment records. I mean, you can go online and you can find out the number of employees I have at every business that we operate. It is pretty fairly, I mean, you gotta know what you're doing to find it, but you can find that, but couldn't that be addressed on, I mean, it might determine business by business, what type of business it is, right? Because on a home-based business, I don't foresee somebody, for example, the one that started this home-based business thing, right? Our beauty salon, or beauty parlor, that's what it originally said, the ordinance did, so that one was old. But, so if you say, if you don't limit it, she could remodel 3/4 of her house and have 20 chairs in there, right? Now that's really creating a nuisance for the neighbors in and out and in and out and in and out. However, just doing it by herself, but it is, they are only approved, if I'm correct, if we adopt this under a special land use.
There'd be two different types, so you still have the home occupation, so if the business is only run in the home, and it's only a certain amount of the home, that's still home occupation, that's used by right. The home-based business will be a special land use.
Right, and under a special land use, we can put conditions on that special land use.
Yes.
And is that the proper place to address it based on what type of business it is?
Makes more sense, yeah, to me anyway.
So versus having it cut in stone, no more than 5 up to 5 acres, you know what I mean? It just, to me, I think it's a case by case, business by business type basis. I don't know if it's something we can just, I mean, we can just set it in stone, but I just don't know that, it doesn't fit every box, is what I'm saying.
And we could create criteria for, let's say, number of employees, this will be reviewed by the planning commission based on these criteria. The planning commission will set the maximum number of non-resident employees.
So that would be a good way to do it, then you could, require them to show adequate parking areas and that type of thing.
I just remember a home-based business back actually when I was in high school, because a couple of guys I went to high school with, it was their dad's home-based business, and on the weekends, he would have up to 50 guys in his pole barn just putting together J-hooks. All they did is, basically ran them through a punch to drill them out. They were formed someplace else, ran them through a punch to drill out the holes and tape the nails to them and screws to them, and that's what they did. And they had a regular assembly line, and if you drove by his house on the weekends, I mean, they were parked up and down the street. Right, so that's what I mean, it could be a case by case business or issue.
Anything else? Anybody have any other questions? So are you gonna try to develop some language for us then, or?
Yeah, we can, for that, section 5,
Okay.
create some new language for further review by the planning commission. The other major change, so on page 4, talking about the size that's allowed in an accessory building. I know there were some preliminary conversations around what that would be. Previously it was 1, 2, 3, 4. A new number being proposed would be 3,300 square feet. So a home-based business would be limited to 3,300 square feet in area if it was adopted as written. I don't know if that's the right number, but just wanted to bring it back to the planning commission for more discussion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I don't like locking it into a square footage like that either, because, once again, it's a case by case and location by location business, because, for example, I know small excavators that it may just be dad and 2 sons working, and they've got more equipment than will fit in a 3,300 square foot building, right? But it's 3 guys. I mean, let's, so they're not Sparta Township, I don't believe, but a local one that is very known, but like the Aftons, right? They're kind of a home-based business where they are, they've moved out to another spot, but you think about all of their equipment they have, and they run with 3 guys, right? They have 3 employees, but all their equipment wouldn't fit in a 10,000 square foot building. So if we start getting into the how much is inside, especially if we start talking about exterior storage here, You know, I would rather see something like that, them inside of a building and out of sight, out of mind,
Right.
than limit them to,
Mhm.
you know, such a small footprint. And I don't know what that number is.
Maybe there again, we don't have a number per se, and we do it on a case by case review.
No, I could create similar to the employees, using similar language for review by the planning commission.
Would we wanna look at it from a standpoint of lot coverage? Okay, you got a building that's gonna be, you got an acre lot, you're not gonna cover it.
Right.
Well, you know, because if you just went by the setbacks, you could have a pretty good sized building.
Well, there's limitations on our accessory buildings already, right?
Well, the accessory building would have to be behind the home.
Right.
And-
But I guess what I'm saying is there's only certain size building you could build based on acreage anyways.
Exactly,
Yep, and this would be considered an accessory building, so it would still be limited by those same provisions.
yep.
Then on the end of page 4 into page 5, speaks more to outdoor storage. So subsection 17 says it has to be located completely within an enclosed accessory building or with an outdoor storage area that is screened from public view. And then as a subsection of that, it talks to what that screening would need to look like. So that remove some of the specific requirements around the parking of motor vehicles and trailers. Does allow for outdoor storage, but also has some more guidelines for how that outdoor storage would have to be screened.
Is that acceptable? Looks like we got that one.
Okay, so just need some minor changes then.
So I'll make the two changes to the employees and the square footage size requirements, and then bring it back to the planning commission for the review next month.
Sounds good. Okay, is there any other public comment on items that we've discussed? Any more input?
I just wanted to ask that, for the preliminary approval, for that property, we had thought that they filed the application already for the full, or where are we standing with that? How does that, I mean, is that automatically on next month's agenda, or?
Do you want me to do it?
Yes, yes.
So the application's been filed, the next steps will be, so the application's filed, but it's finalizing the request, so based on the preliminary feedback, there does need to be a survey of the area that will be done. We can't create the formal ordinance until we have that legal description, so once we have that legal description, then I can schedule the rezoning request for a public hearing. It's potential that it's for next month, but it's really when that legal description comes in, and then we have to do a public hearing notice, so it could be next month, but that will have to be a pretty quick turnaround for that legal description.
Okay.
What would be the cutoff?
What's it?
I can follow up with you
What would be-
more
what would be
after
the
the
cutoff
meeting to give you
date?
some of the deadlines.
Well, yeah, that's what we need to know is when's the cutoff.
I can follow, I don't have it right now in the back
Okay.
of my head, but I can follow up after the meeting to get you what that date would be.
Okay, appreciate it, thank you.
Any public comments, Paul? Okay. I didn't hear it close the other business, so that's kind of gone, Terry slipped it in there. My name's Warren Peterson Jr., with 12250 Sparta Avenue. And I'm here for just to get a little bit of clarification on a couple of things. I'm gonna start a little bit of history with us. And so we moved into Sparta area back in 1968. And we farmed that until 1991, when we sold the farm to the Bradford Farm. And at that time, we sold the farm in 200 acres, okay? And then my dad had plenty of other acreage that we're working on trying to sell, because none of us are gonna continue farming. I'm over that, okay? Okay, so we've had a, and talked to Jason Bradford, and they've been renting from us for many years, since 1991, okay? So when we sold the farm, they took over and started renting all the properties. And so I talked to Jason a little bit about, as we were coming into selling some of the properties, and some of the people that were looking to purchase the properties were looking to, I said, would you be interested if renting that land from them also, as we move forward on some of the other properties we had up in Kansas City and things up around there? And he said, yeah, I would, anything I can get, I need. I'll rent anything you guys have. And he's gonna keep renting until we sell or the building starts happening, whenever that happens, okay? So we've had some people come in wanting to buy the property. We had a couple families come in, they had their sons and their daughters, and they wanted to build a house over in the Ag 1. They wanted to build a house over on the small 1.5 by my dad's house, and then the house itself, okay? And they wanted to lease out the property, okay? And then I had another person come in, and they called down here, and they said they were told at the office that they could not build on that A1 property unless they were going to farm it, okay? So then I had somebody else that would come in to ask about the property to buy the whole thing again, and he got an answer from here that I'm just telling you what I was told, okay? So that's why I'm kind of here for some clarification. That he couldn't build on the Ag 1, but he could build back in the woods. Yeah, that's kind of what I gave too. So I'm kind of into some clarification where we're at with that. Are we any point that anybody building on Ag 1 cannot lease their property out? Because you can build an Ag 1 for size. I got a whole list of ordinances here because I did some reading. And that they are limited to that they cannot lease the property out, they have to farm it. Well, that kind of, to me, kind of takes away the opportunity of preserving farmland when Jason wants to, Bradford Farms wants to lease these properties as much as they can. So I'm just trying to figure out where this came from and how this, they can't build, they can build, but they gotta farm it, and they can't lease it, or they can't build, and they gotta build in the woods. I'm trying to put little pieces together on this. It's kind of confusing me, because I can't give people answers when I don't know. Did that make sense?
Catch-22.
Kevin, do you recall any of those conversations, or were
Yes,
you
so-
involved in any of those?
Yes. So with, I'll call it the farm property right now. So the special land use split off the old farmhouse, and now there's the remaining acreage, and I have had a few calls on that. What happens with that property is it's dual zoned. So the portion that has frontage on Sparta Avenue is Ag 1, and the back, and I don't remember the exact measurement off the top of my head, but the back half of the property is zoned Ag 2. So for the Ag 1 portion of the property, all the Ag 1 rules apply, and Sparta defines dwellings in two ways. So there's agricultural dwellings and non-agricultural dwellings. In order to build a non-agricultural dwelling in the A1 district, you have to create a non-agricultural lot. So that's where you have to create that 1 to 2 acre lot in order to build a non-agricultural dwelling. In order to build an agricultural dwelling in A1, so on a larger parcel, you have to show that the person living in that house is primarily engaged in agricultural operations on that parcel or adjacent parcels. So to build so unless somebody that's farming that property builds the house, they can't build in the first couple hundred feet of the property. They would have to go to the back side of the property, which is zoned A2, and then a dwelling regardless is a use by right.
Okay. So the farmhouse is on Ag 1.
Yep.
The current farmhouse, what is it?
And that-
The 8 acre parcel?
What's that? The ag 2 is the woods in the back.
Okay,
Okay, that's 13 acres on that woods in the back.
and that's ag 2.
Okay.
So it's almost split down the middle, and I can get some more, pull up to get some measurements, but it's really the whole, north-south, there's a line through that property. West of that line is A2, east of it's A1, and this is something that is, throughout different portions of the A1 district, you'll see splotches of A2. It's not a best planning practice, but from what I've been able to tell is those splotches of green usually are overlapping areas of steep slopes and wetlands. So I'm assuming 20, 30, however many years ago, that's why that was done, is those wetlands can't be farmed, or a lot of it can't be. So it's not something I would recommend moving forward, but it's already there. But it does create unique situations like this, where you have large agricultural parcels that have A1 and A2 zoning.
Yeah, the wetland part of it, that's all in the woods. We farmed that property since we bought it from Jerry Wilson back in the 70s. So, and then you go out there with all the rain we have now, it's dry as a bone.
That's on the west side.
That's on the, yes,
West side of the road?
yes, on the west side of the road.
Okay.
So the other side.
Now I
of the
know
road.
where you're
Okay,
talking about.
Okay, yeah, my dad's.
I know,
you where my
I knew
dad's
the
at.
Wilson, so you're
Okay.
talking on the west side of the
Okay,
road.
yep,
Okay,
okay.
so that's all ag 2, right?
From the west property line,
Wish I had a board.
starting at the west property line, then going 660 feet east, that's all A2. And then all the land between that and Sparta Avenue is all A1.
And they want to, yeah, so they want to buy it and build on it? Is that what you're saying?
So we have the 8 acres right here that we just split off.
Right,
Okay.
that's the old Wilson.
Yep, that's the house. the
Yep,
barns, and
yep,
all this right here.
Yep, I know
Okay.
that.
Back here,
Anderson Valley.
on the backside of the property, here is woods.
Yep.
About 13 acres there. Now everything from here, around here, except this little square right here, is ag 1.
No. This picture, and I can show the rest of the planning commission, this is how the property is zoned, so that the west half
Oh, they
is
went all the way up
A2.
to that, okay.
Yeah, so from what I've been able to tell from the zoning map, the west half of the property is A2, the east property is A1.
Okay,
So
so they want to,
they want to propose putting a house in an area here and then leasing out the rest of the property. And we have this piece here that they could, it's a separate piece.
okay,
You see that right there, that yellow
Yeah.
rectangle there? The separate piece, they wanna put a house for a kid there and a
That's
house
the
for a kid here.
1.1.
That's the 1.1, yeah.
okay,
There and there, and then they wanted to lease out the rest of the property. Is what they were wanting to do.
So yeah, they would not be able to build a second house. So on the 1.1, yes, that is a non-agricultural
They
lot.
could build a
They
house
can build a
there.
house as a use by right. But on that larger parcel, they'll have to build, in order to do it as, in order to build a house, if they're not farming the property, they would have to be $620 feet from the front lot line, so probably 630 feet from the road, in order to build into the A2 district.
So would you, at that point, that would cause another split to run, to get road frontage that you require to go through there, correct?
You could build a driveway, you cannot build a private. A1, you're able to build a private road, but the standards in order to build a private road in A1 are very high, so they would have to build a 630-foot driveway at least in order to build a home on the back half of that property.
is there any way to rezone the front part of it?
Would not meet the rezoning standards, it would essentially amount to spot zoning. I mean, the A2
Okay.
that's already there is already.
Okay, I'm
spot,
just,
yeah.
yeah, was just a question.
No, it's,
Could we could we allow them to build a house there and tie it to that property then and you know, if they're gonna lease it out, it's gonna be farmed, correct?
zoning ordinance and the definition within the zoning ordinance says they have to be primarily engaged. At this point, there's already been an interpretation to be set. In order to change that interpretation, either the zoning ordinance needs to be amended or we would need to go to the ZBA, and if the ZBA determined that the interpretation should be if somebody builds a house and is leasing that for farmland, then the ZBA's interpretation would stand, but at this point, the interpretation's been set. Other people have been held to that same standard that they weren't, you know, I've worked with a few people that were selling people to sons, daughters, family members, and in order to build a house on a 40-acre parcel, people that were living there weren't being engaged in farming, so they had to do the non-agricultural split first in order to build a home.
Can the entire portion be changed to Ag 1? I'm just asking.
Well, I'm just wondering what that would do, because you'd still have to farm it if you built a house on it.
Yeah, you'd still have to take your split as a.
You'd still have to,
You'd have-
it would still have to be farmed by them,
Yes.
even if you changed it to Ag 1 instead of Ag 2.
Then the whole property, you wouldn't be able to build a house anywhere on the property if it was
No,
already
you-
zoned to A1.
Okay.
You'd have to change to A2 to do that. And the other question is, so what ordinance is that under, so I can read that? I read a lot of ordinances. It's just, yeah. I didn't have to read your book, but over here. For that, and so what would be the difference if they went and farmed, let's say they decided to farm 5 acres of that for a year, and then decided they didn't like to farm and then leased it out? What would? Because I don't think there's any time limits on that.
That's gonna be the continuation under the current provisions. Once the house is built, we can't stop the sale of it, and that is definitely one of the pieces. You know, there's nothing that the township can hold somebody in the future, whoever lives in the house in the future, to continue to farm that property. So that is one of the potential issues. I don't know if issue is the right word, but that is, you know, if somebody came in, was able to show that they were primary engaged in agriculture, they built a house, and a year later decided to lease the property, we'll never know. Or if once the house is built, they sell it to somebody else. I don't have the ability as a zoning administrator to go out. So the intent, I understand the intent, but I don't know if the way it's written is if the intent is fully able to be carried out.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think I'm a little confused now. You want to build a house on Sparta Avenue right by where your dad used to live, right?
No, not me.
Or they do, I should say.
They do, yeah.
So it's Ag 1, correct?
Yeah.
They have the ability to do that, but you'd have to do a split of a minimum acreage for that area, is that correct?
A non-agricultural split, but I can't do
They
any
don't
more
have any
splits.
more splits available for that property because of
Okay,
the
so that
special
part I missed. Because I know like Rob's a farmer, I'm a farmer, and we potentially have availability based on our acreage, sliding scale or whatever for those splits, and I didn't realize that all of the splits were exhausted for that farm.
Yeah, I did not realize the way it sat that you were unable to rent it. If you purchase that property, you were unable to rent that property out. So that kind of takes away the purpose of saving farmland, is forcing somebody to farm. We have had offers of some farmers offering for the whole thing, but we've had better offers from other people, but they have problems. They want to bring their families in and put a couple houses in, and and lease the property out and, you know, use the backwoods for hunting and things like that, so. So we're kinda looking at those first and asking the questions, cause they came down, you know, they said that, I'm kinda going, sounds kinda odd, so I had to get some clarification on and why we were running, as a purchaser, purchase that property, you could not lease your own land out. No.
What if you leased, or didn't lease it, but you bought the property and you farmed it yourself?
That's what
And
you
then
said.
you sold the product that you're farming to the one that wants to buy the product, that was gonna lease it. Would that be possible?
That would be up to the owners that bought the property. I'm not gonna get back in the farming again.
You wanna get.
Well, you guys don't know.
Somewhere around.
I know that apple business is a little different. Color will slap you in the face every now and then with a cripey tail. No, I thought of that same thing too, but it's a matter of a person purchasing it and the ability for them to lease it out, to be able to rent the property out, not necessarily farm it themselves. So,
Get your taxes paid.
so.
A lot of ifs.
What's that?
A lot of ifs.
There's a lot of ifs, a lot of questions. Whereabouts in, I did not see that part in the ordinance where that was at as far as, agricultural split and what it has to be used for.
I would be happy to follow up with you, cause I've done that for other properties where there's complicated situations and kinda give you.
You got my email address, don't you?
Yeah.
Yes. Send me that. I read a lot of them. I did not either read past it or that was basically based on my search on looking at building an A1 in that area with a 5, what do we got? Yeah, like the 154.195 area stuff, you know, that's so. One fifty four, 20, yeah, an area, 154 area. Trying to look at the options and see what we could offer people that are looking at that. And when it falls back on the egg 2, now you gotta cross the egg 1, and that's where
Get to it.
that now creates another problem of, then if you're crossing your egg 1, realistically, there's no road frontage here anyways, cause the power lines go across there anyway, so that's basically your frontage is the power line, so nothing goes right to the road. So you're crossing egg 1 from the back of the property to see Bilton Woods, and now you gotta run a road all the way out, a driveway all the way out. Now you're actually splitting that tillable piece of ground with a driveway.
You could run it off to one edge.
You have to go across the swamp, around a corner. Yeah.
Person put down a road with the astronomical.
Yeah.
You'd have to meet standards.
What's that?
You'd have to meet standards for the road.
Right.
Yep. No, it'd be a driveway.
That'd be a driveway,
Just a
yeah.
long driveway. Why would you go to the expense of putting a private road in when nobody else can be on that road because you don't have any more splits on the property, so you would just put a driveway.
So Kevin will get back with you and
It's
get
complicated.
information.
So our options are possibly getting verbiage changed. But you're saying that's an option of getting verbiage changed for the agricultural property.
You do have the ability to petition to amend the zoning ordinance, but there's no guarantee that it gets
No,
approved.
nothing's ever guaranteed.
And I can talk to you
Death and
more with
taxes.
the different ways to look at it if you'd like. Petitioning, the other ability would be to seek a interpretation from the ZBA. So yeah, I think those are probably really the only two options if somebody wanted to build an A1.
I just need that clarification of where it was coming from and how it was getting there and where it was written down, so I can understand what was going on with it, so I can explain it, of what's going on with it, so. Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks for looking at that, and I'll be in contact with you a little bit to figure out, and, figure out where that's at and do some more reading. There's a loophole somewhere. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Anything else?
Just real quick,
Yes.
that information that I have, what's the best way to send it to the planning commission? Just so,
Probably get it to Kevin and
is there any way,
you can
can I
disseminate it.
send it to?
Yes, I will include it with the
Awesome.
next packet.
Thank you.
Alright. Anything else? Do you have anything else, Kevin, or?
No.
Okay. Entertain a motion for adjournment?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
I
Mr. Stephens, any words of wisdom after the meeting?